I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently. Whether you feel stuck in survival, navigating a change, or seeking more for your life, may this podcast be your weekly nudge to take a risk to build a life that is uniquely bold, authentic, and in alignment with your deepest values. After a decade of coaching individuals from corporate leaders to creative artists to multi-million-dollar CEOs, I'm convinced we are far closer than we realize to what we deeply desire, and it's a willingness to do differently that can change everything. There is something that comes up over and over again in conversations with my private coaching clients. It comes up when we're talking about getting out of survival and looking at the barriers that prevent you from having more time, peace of mind, and freedom in your life. It involves overgiving, over-delivering, overworking, overextending, just overing, period. Where are you overing in your life? Today's episode, I want to take you into this conversation I have with clients because it may be having an impact in your life too. And the Life-preneurship Principle we're covering today is responsibility. If you've been listening for a while, you might remember episodes number 73 and 74 I did last year on being the entrepreneur of your life and life-preneurship. If you are new to the podcast, I encourage you to go back, especially if the idea of life-preneurship is new to you. These are foundational topics to all the things I create conversation around on this podcast. Whether you realize it or not, you are the entrepreneur of your own life. Just as a refresh, life-preneurship is the philosophy that we have been living by for years and what I teach inside of all of my coaching programs. And I've created the 7 principles of life-preneurship, which you can download in the show notes. The principle of responsibility says you are 100% responsible for your life experience. You can't always control the circumstances, events, or challenges that come your way, but you always have a choice as to how you show up and respond. It's the good news, bad news, but mostly good news. In my private one-on-one coaching programs, we talk about your domain of responsibility. And your domain of responsibility includes the things you are actually responsible for in your life. So, what are you actually responsible for? Let's just make a mental list, and here's some to get you started. Maybe it's your well-being, your health, your energy, your finances, your home, your children if they're young and small and in your care, your relationships, your performance at work, your thoughts, your perceptions, your mood, your actions, and on and on. Why does this matter? What I find when working with clients is similar to an octopus, and this is especially true for women. We tend to have our arms in all kinds of other places. Places like excessive worry for others or situations or circumstances, excessive worry about things in the world, things that we have no control or influence over. We might have our arms in just thinking for others and feeling responsible for how others feel, or we might be managing others and taking on their problems as if they were our own. This often comes from a really good place and a very good intention, but it can also create a mess, and we end up tangling ourselves in places we don't need to be tangled. This can also lead to overextending ourselves and committing to things that aren't ours to commit to, taking responsibility for things that aren't ours to manage, taking on things we don't need to take on, meddling in business that's not ours. And this is often a place that you can free up tons and loads of time and energy. I had a realization years ago, even though I had the best of intentions and it felt like, my excessive worry or overextending myself was helping others, I began to see and ask myself, is this really helping? Or is it just weighing me down in worry and concern? And then when I interact with my loved ones or people in my life that I was worried about, it actually created this heavy energy in the way that I related to them or connected with them. And instead of seeing them as strong and capable, I burdened myself with a responsibility to help them or fix what was happening. It sounds ridiculous as I say it, because I realized that what they really wanted wasn't someone to help them do anything. They just wanted me to see them, to love them, let them talk it through. And that's often what helped them make their own discoveries. And I began to see that it's actually a gift we give others. This by no means is about you being selfish or not being generous or not lending a helping hand. It's actually quite the opposite, because when you clean up the places where you're doing things out of a need to prove yourself or overcome something you decided about yourself or to get acceptance or approval or whatever it is, that these are places where we might be overstepping or assuming a role that's not necessary or outdated. I love to support people here because there are places where we can harness enormous amounts of time and energy so that you can pour that into other important parts of your life. The surface solution to this is most people live resigned and feeling at the mercy of their circumstances, frustrated by the demands of others or the demands at work, or they feel pulled in too many directions. But they haven't stopped to realize that they are actually responsible for everything they say yes to. We can tell stories in our head that cause us to feel pressured to do these things or obligated to help, and at the same time, we're doing it all too often to the detriment of our own well-being, our health. That leaves us with an empty cup, and then we're actually unavailable to help or unavailable for the most important people and things in our life. There also may be situations that we find ourselves obligated to where we feel there's no choice and it feels like an enormous burden. While this can sometimes be true, I want you to see that there is actually even a choice in those moments. And when you can actually own that choice and show up as if it is the one you chose, you will have freedom and access to things you never imagined. The root solution when you're dealing with this over responsibility and overextending ourselves and overing in all kinds of places and pockets in our life is what I call the survival model. And you can go back to episode number 17, Are You in Survival Mode? I have found after years of coaching and working with people that there was something in the way, that often they wanted to change a relationship or a job or move to a new city to make a change to feel better. But I discovered there was something else in the way, and it's what I call your survival model. And it keeps us repeating patterns of the past that are unfulfilling and don't lead to the results that we want today. Your survival model is one of those things that can be in the way. And it can also cause us to travel way outside of our domain of responsibility. So be on the lookout for these types of behaviors. Overthinking for others, managing behavior of others, taking on work of others, overgiving, overworking, overcommitting yourself. If you'd like more time and energy in your life, this is a great place to get it back so that you can focus on your actual responsibilities. I remember a time working with someone where she was feeling burdened by something a friend was going through for an extended period of time. And the negative space that friend had been in for this extended period of time was dragging her down too. She found herself wanting to pull away from this long-standing, beautiful friendship. And we talked about what if the next time they hung out, and what if she took on being a great friend instead of a problem solver? And what if she imagined an invisible trash can, and when they started the conversation and all the familiar complaining and unloading, what if she just imagined it all falling into the can instead of onto her? Let her friend get it all out, and if needed, she could ask, Do you need help solving this, or do you just want an ear to listen? Her friend just needed an ear to listen. And once it was out this time, once she got everything out, they began to laugh. The mood lightened. She wasn't tangled in the problem solving. They had levity and were back to being friends. Do you see how we can get tangled in places that we don't need to be tangled in? And that when we are aware of that and can separate ourselves from that, that we can actually show up more fully as a friend? I encourage you to resist the urge to take on others' burdens, worries, and workloads, etc. When in doubt, you can always ask, how can I best support you? Instead of assuming their needs. And this isn't about being selfish. It is about being clear on your boundaries. And this will free you to actually be authentically generous. Something you can repeat to yourself is, I am aware of my domain of responsibility. I am mindful when I'm putting energy in places that don't belong to me. I pull back and restore my energy, and I see others as equipped to handle what they have and to ask for help. This is a gift I give to others. Here's the thing. We teach people to be in relationship with us. It's likely that you may have taught the people in your life how to be in relationship with you. And maybe it's that you've always been there to say yes when they need something, or at work when you always take on the load of others because you can't bear to see the consequences. Or maybe you step in and rescue people when you don't have the capacity, time, or energy yourself, and it's just been a knee-jerk survival mode action. If you're ever wondering, do they need help? Should I help? Can I help? Ask, do you need help solving this? Or can I just listen? Or how can I best support you? Most of the time, people don't want help solving. They just want a kind, loving presence to hold the space and listen because they're working it out on their own. And this is a gift that you give to both of you. There is a quote in a book by Harriet Lerner. She's a PhD, and she talks about how in relationships, there's an element of personal responsibility that we need to take on. And she says, by responsibility, I mean response-ability. That is, the ability to observe ourselves in action and respond to a familiar situation in a new and different way. When we do this, the other person in relationship with us can no longer move in the same predictable pattern. And I have seen amazing things happen in relationships here. You get to change your dance. You may not be able to change other people in your life, but when you change your dance, they have to shift too. You can free yourself if you've got yourself caught in these patterns of overing. When you pull your arms back in and focus on the things you're actually responsible for, you can expect to feel a little uncomfortable. I encourage you to push through. You can expect to have more time, energy, and vitality for the big rocks in your life. You can expect to have improved relationships. They will feel cleaner and less tangly, and you will have an ability to be generous and show up with a big yes when it truly makes sense to support, help, and serve others. Sometimes this can be hard to see yourself. It's like a blind spot in your rearview mirror. You can't see it, but it could have significant impact or could be having significant impact in your life. Guess what? This is a small piece of the work I do with clients in my Elevate 8-week intensive. Would you like to join me for 8 weeks? Here's what you can expect. Elevate is designed for individuals who are ready to get out of their own way to create lasting momentum in all domains of their life. In this experience together, you will shed mental noise, stress, and struggle. You will move out of survival mode. You will improve your well-being, strengthen your relationships, and boost your performance. You're going to see a new approach that allows you to navigate life with greater ease and joy. And you're going to get clarity to move forward intentionally. This is an 8-week intensive. It's a private one-on-one experience. You can get all the details if you reach out to me on my website, carlareeves.com, fill out the contact form or book a call directly. I will put all the links in the show notes. I'm going to leave you with a question. Where are you traveling outside of your domain of responsibility? And what would be possible if you pull your arms back in and actually focus that energy on your big rocks? What's possible for you, for others, and for the quality of your everyday life. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, will you please do me a favor and go leave a 5-star review? I would be so grateful, and I read every single one of them. I hope that this inspired something in your life today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, be sure to hit follow on your favorite podcast app. And if this episode could impact someone you know, please help us spread the word and pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.